Good on and welcome everybody to another episode of Big Life Mindset, the best hacks and strategies so you can love life more. My name is Eri Rakanui, and this podcast is in the top 10% most shared worldwide on Spotify. As a leadership coach, I support executives, business owners, and entrepreneurs, and I help them reduce the stress and burnout while maximizing their performance, but more importantly, looking after their mental health. Today, I am joined by none other than Rachael Fitzjohn.
Hello, Edie.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good.
So this is almost like the first time we've said hello.
I feel like it is. It feels like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But just off camera, what has happened was Rachael has very kindly been patient enough with me while I sorted out all sorts of tech things going on around me. So
all the best of us have tech challenges.
Indeed. I'm afflicted by them. So the reason why I wanted to catch up with you was because we have a series and it's called Living Your Passion. And it really focuses on understanding some of the challenges that women can face when chasing their passions and their dreams. And also, if there are any little nuggets of insights that you can share on what an engaged husband, son, nephew, brother, what we can do to help support and empower people going through that journey. And what good support even looks like.
Good call.
Yeah, because I think, before I started this journey on my own, I thought good looked like X, only to find out it looked like F to G, so something over that. So it's been a really cool learning curve for me as well.
Yeah.
But more than anything, it's really just to hear, some of the challenges and a little bit about you and where you're at currently. So. Sure. What's been going on?
What's been going on? How much time have we got?
We got
5
loads.
or 6 hours?
We got loads.
I'll try and keep it as succinct as I can, but succinct is not a word that people use with me very often, Eddie, so I'll do my best. Yes, I'm Rachael Fitzjohn. I often get called Fitzy, actually, because in a couple of roles that I've been in recently, there has been multiple Rachels, which I haven't had very often in my career so far. And so I was like, well, Fitzjohn, Fitzy, someone suggested it, and now it's stuck. It's quite good. I often joke as well, not that I'm badly behaved ever, of course, but I often joke that it's quite good to have a work nickname, because then when you're out and about and someone yells out, Fitzy, you're like, it's someone from work.
Yeah, I've got to behave myself.
Pull yourself together. So I'm currently the head of people experience at a company called Kogo.
Cool.
So we are a scaling sort of startup business, and we provide, it's a really interesting and it's quite topical, I think, for a lot of people, because obviously there's been a lot of weather-related events and other concerns about the world essentially are boiling to new temperatures. So what Kogo does is helps customers to understand their carbon impact in terms of the purchases that they do. So you can imagine that working at a company like that, there's a lot of passionate people.
Yes.
And really committed people to the cause. And I feel really, really appreciated and really strongly about the fact that the leadership team at Kogo decided, even though we are a small business, we've got to get ahead of people experience in here. Perhaps arguably earlier than what other companies might think about doing it, because of the fact that, they realise that the workforce that you have is really important. And to have someone with those skills to be able to support people, especially when we've got a lot of subject matter experts that we're trying to then grow them into leaders as well. So that's been really interesting for me so far.
Awesome.
A lot of hard work. The thing with startups is that you're sometimes wearing 1,000 hats.
Yes.
But that's okay. I don't mind doing that. And it's been quite an interesting change for me, because before I was at Kogo, I was at a couple of quite large enterprise-sized sort of organisations. So before I was at Kogo, I was at Xero, and then before Xero, I was at BNZ Digital. So both amazing experiences as well, and have taught me so much in a lot of discipline. And then you go into a startup and you're like, oh, there's no discipline. So the discipline's coming from me, funnily enough.
Wow.
So it's been really, really fun. And I've met some amazing people so far. We've got some good people.
That's cool. Yeah. And so you talked about like the differences between going into really big and large established organizations, and then there's kind of building the structure and helping people understand, well, this is what good's going to look like. What's some of the challenges you found there?
So challenges in terms of translating that to Kogo, so some advice that I got from a wonderful colleague and now luckily enough to call a friend. She said, don't think that you can apply enterprise-sized, I guess, plans or disciplines to a small business because people just don't have the time. Like everyone is running around doing 1,000 things. And so a really important thing for me was to understand the principles of, I guess, caring for people and that encouragement for people to bring their whole self to work is really important as well, because a lot of our larger organisations, at the very least, are saying that they believe that. Really good organisations are actually doing it, and more, so that's really reassuring. But it is about providing that sort of safe space at work where it's like they're not your family, they're not your necessarily even your close people, but they do care about your well-being and want you to do your best work. I guess one of the biggest things that I've brought into Kogo is that every employee deserves, should expect and is entitled to really good coaching from their leader.
Awesome.
Because, we've probably all been in situations where you get bugger all, for want of a better word. And look, I'm just going to be really honest and say it's a tight job market. People have got options in terms of where they work, and even though at Kogo especially we're bringing people in that have got a certain alignment with what we're trying to achieve, they're still professionals in their own right and deserve that support. So a massive focus for me since being at Kogo has been around getting in behind the leaders and coaching the leaders to actually understand what being a good manager or a good leader looks like. So that's been really exciting and quite challenging because you get all sorts of pushback from people. And questioned as well. I think the other thing about working in such a small sort of startup environment is there's nowhere to hide. Like, at a large organisation, you're like, I'm just going to sail under the, and it's like, nope, you're right there and there's one of you. And I'm lucky enough to have two wonderful PX managers that support me because we're in different, people experience managers. And so we've got one that looks after our APAC region, and then we've got loads of people in Europe as well. So we've got someone based in the UK that helps with that. And we are very, very open about giving us feedback. We can assume we have the answers, but we're all coming from our own experience, which is all valid. But we've got to think of the greater good of the organisation. So that real sort of getting as close as we can to our people has been a huge, blessing for me, for want of a better word, because you don't get that close in other organisations.
I was just about to ask that, like, there's the stage of development that the organisation is at and the sheer number of people that you've got. Does that allow for a more personal approach?
Yeah, it does. And it won't forever, obviously, because, Kogo's goal, like a lot of business, well, like most businesses, I guess, is to grow and to get bigger and all of that. So it will have to change as time goes on. But I think for me, in the stage of career that I'm in terms of, I guess, and not experimenting, more testing some of my theories and my approach I've been so fortunate to be able to do it and to be connected to a smaller group of people. So I guess what that means in a day-to-day way is that we have, what we call employee forums that people can join, where essentially we're sort of trying to understand what's the temperature check at the moment. We've got our surveying and the various other things that we do to kind of test the temperature. But what's actually important to people? Because again, I can go, 4-day working week, or like whatever we're thinking about. But if that's not what the people are sort of saying in these forums or sharing with their leaders or giving to us in feedback, then why am I trying to shove that down people's throats, So getting people's opinion is really important to us. And it's also one of the values of Kogo, which I'm happy to talk more detail about because of the fact that it's quite controversial in some respects, is we have quite radical transparency at Kogo as well.
Radical transparency. Oh, I even love the phrase.
I know.
That's
so
cool.
The value is transparency. But, and it's a shame in some respects that we call it radical because, you say to transparency to one person and they're like, oh, okay. And transparency is quite an interesting word. Like it means different things to different people.
So
and trying to do it in a space that in a business kind of environment comes with its own challenges. So I guess we put the radical in front to indicate to people, oh no, we take this very seriously, and it's not like a selected group of pieces of information that we share. We share everything, which comes with its challenges too, but it works for us so far.
I can imagine. I mean, not to start that again. If we took Kogo out of that equation and we just said, okay, looking at people in general, do you see people in general would struggle with having that kind of, this is the mindset that we're going in with, like this radical transparency, sharing everything? Yeah. What are some of the challenges you think people experience?
Such a good question, because absolutely. And I would say it's, anecdotally, it's probably a 50-50 split, if I'm to be honest. So that's why I say that's what we're doing at the moment, and we'll always assess, but we'll never change things without buy-in from people. But you're absolutely right. There's some people that go, yep, I want to know everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. And I want to know when the senior leaders know, we want to know pretty shortly afterwards. Because that's how some people are built, and that more information is empowering, and it helps them. It helps with the trust piece for them as well, in terms of a bit of a no surprises situation. But then you've got other people that are like, actually, that's too stressful for me. And I actually understand that point too, because, and it's, it's not about people putting their heads in the sand or anything like that. It's just about, we're all got lots on our plate. We've all, and I say this pointedly, we've all got mental health challenges. It's whether or not we admit it or not.
100%, totally agree.
And so we're all doing our best to manage our own emotional and mental health. And for some people that means, you know what, I don't want to know 6 months ahead of time what's going on in the finances of the business, or I don't want to see when finances get challenging, or I don't want to see how much that person's paid versus what I'm paid, because that might cause me stress. So I'm not going to, I guess, sit here and say, yeah, transparency is great, like it works really well. It's definitely got value. It definitely does. But I can understand why some, I guess, other businesses go, do we call it transparency or do we call it something else? Is it a case of we respect our people and we will tell them as soon as we can, or do we just tell them everything? Because there can be challenges with those things. The other thing about being transparent is, God, you've got to have your ducks in a row about the information that you share as well.
Man,
because people can see it all. They can see it all.
This is some of the challenges, like beneath the surface.
Exactly,
right?
yeah. And so we share, for an example, we share our financial model. So that's our profit and loss. That's everything. So people can go in, all of our staff can go in and go, oh, what is that? Oh, the money runs out at this point if we don't, win another customer, or we don't, do whatever we need to do. Like, there's obviously a whole lot of variables and factors that go into it, but people can see when the money runs out. Obviously we seek investment, and we have got some really amazing and decent sized clients here and offshore from New Zealand, but you can still see when things get a bit stressful on the financial model. We've also got completely transparent pay from the global CEO and founder, I know, right down to, say, someone who's graduated from uni and is in an entry-level software engineer role. Everyone can see what everyone's on. What I believe you must have in place if you're going to go, hey, look, pop in and have a look, see what your colleagues are on, see what the big boss is on, see what this person's on, is a few things. The first one is you've got to have a really strong commitment to equity and recognition of diversity and fairness across everybody as well. So if I'm going to have, say, a female level 1 engineer go into that piece of information and see that another level 1 engineer who is a man is getting paid more, well, that's absolutely unacceptable. So we've got to be very committed to how we manage I guess the REM sort of conversations. The thing that helps us do that is that we have what we call competency development frameworks. I don't know if you would have come across that term, but we have those for every single role in the business, which, as you can imagine, sometimes if things are busy and being a startup, we're pivoting all over the place. We are racing to keep up with these competency development frameworks sometimes, but it means that there's a very clear I guess buckets of progress, for want of a better term. So as, say, a level 1 engineer, what you need to achieve or be able to prove or demonstrate before you move on to the next phase. So it's very clear, even if someone goes in and goes, oh, why is that person on that much? And like, because if you go over to the development frameworks, you'll see this is what they are contributing. So you can't really have one without the other.
Yep.
It's a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's really important. And in terms of being able to have good coaching conversations, you know, you've got this to rely on. So
great insights to have to take into those conversations. When you're seeing that approach taken, like obviously it needs to be brought in by leadership. That's who's got to take it on board first, and then it can cascade throughout the organisation. Is it, how do you convince, or how do you not convince, that's not the right word, but how do you empower the leadership to recognise that this is actually really good for the organisation, not just for me personally, but actually right throughout? What does that look like?
Another really good question.
Good.
And I think we are fortunate at Kogo in that our founder and global CEO, Ben Gleisner, has got a real, he's very passionate about transparency.
Oh.
And he's very passionate about sort of how important people are in terms of actually creating this business and growing this business. So I'm not going to lie and say I didn't have to, I walked into a wonderful situation where I knew that the founder at least who was very aligned. The reality is our executive leadership team are on board with it to an extent, but it is around, from my perspective, it's around without people, you don't have a business, without the business, you don't have the people either. But in this situation, it's like you are as good as your good, happy, inspired and dedicated people.
Yeah.
There is so much discussion and so much stuff going on in various channels and conversations happening in various channels around what it means to provide a good employee experience as well. Because I think we've gone are the days where maybe your parents, I know my parents were like this, oh, well, I've got this job and I'm staying in it for ages.
No matter what.
No matter what, I'm just going to be here and I'm going to get the silver spoon when I retire. And that has been gone for years.
Yeah.
And I also, my father's in his 70s, but worked public sector for most of his life, only did in his whole career a few changes, which is, relatively normal for that period of time. Now it's sort of flipped over and different generations are coming through and there's different experiences and people are like, well, I'll just bloody go somewhere else, and we're experiencing that, in New Zealand, and we are in the UK, and I know that because Kogo's in the UK as well, really low unemployment, people have got choices.
Yes.
And if you want to get the really good people, then they need to be able to come in and go, oh, yeah, good. They've got their finger on the pulse of people. They respect us enough to share that information. It's not a secret. I've worked in a previous organisation, who shall remain nameless, until I name it at some point accidentally.
I've done that kind of thing too.
But no, you get some people saying, I was at an organisation where a note went out to all leaders to say, you need to advise your people that they are not allowed to talk about their salaries.
I've seen this happen as well.
And I was like, you have got to be kidding.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, you can tell people that till they're blue in the face. They're still going to talk about it.
Yeah.
So either front foot it or end up looking like an idiot.
Yeah.
And so, and look, I'm not going to sit here, Eddie, and say we get it right all the time. I do not get things right all the time. I'm the first one to say no one does it on their own. I don't do it on my own. I've got my strengths and I've got my weaknesses. If we don't get something right with, say, these competency development frameworks or with the pay structures that we're doing, tell us, because we want to get it right. We want to at least show you the respect that we're working on it, and it is always a work in progress. Yeah,
absolutely. Just picking up on the comment about how all of us have got our strengths and weaknesses, right? And you've got obviously a focus on coaching and mentoring and providing that support. What does that look like for you?
Well, to be honest, it depends on the individual. And I say that not offhandedly either, because I come from the school of thought, having been a people leader for a long time and now, coaching and supporting leaders and more senior people, is that it has got to be a scenario that suits them.
Yeah.
I very much see myself as a servant leader. So that is, the whole purpose of my role being there is for other people. So when I am having coaching conversations with people, it is about building up that rapport. And believe it or not, I don't talk too much, or I try not to talk too much in some of those sessions, because I want to create a situation where that person has got the space, whether they're a chatterbox like me, or whether they're maybe a little bit more introverted, or don't, or take some time to build up confidence with me, which is absolutely fine. But I very much say our one-on-ones or our catch-ups are for you. I will obviously have some frameworks or some guiding sort of principles that I can sort of direct our conversations, but I want you to feel comfortable enough to tell me what it is that you need. Or you're coming to me with a challenge that you're facing, and I properly listen before jumping in with because that's another thing that I've been given feedback on and I've had to work on. You're like, are they finished yet? I've got the answer. I've got the solution. I just want to get in the conversation to be able to say it. So that's been one of my biggest differences. And I used to have, because I had a wonderful, wonderful colleague at Xero, a woman called Ricky Heimer, who is... Hi, Ricky, if you're listening.
Cool. We're sharing this with Ricky.
Ricky's
That's
amazing.
really cool.
And Ricky said to me, you've got so many wonderful pieces of advice to give, but don't always be the one that talks first. Give people some space, because people appreciate your enthusiasm, but that's not good enough. Like, it needs to be, you're like that. And saying that you're like that, and, oh yeah, sorry, I'm a chatterbox, not good enough. You need to actually work on it. So then I said to her, Ricky, I've put a post-it on my laptop. So when I go into a meeting, it says, did you speak first? Just to kind of go, But I guess back to your question.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's
it's a good one.
Practical piece of advice.
Practical. And she, just to finish off that Ricky point, she really is a wonderful, wonderful person. When she gave me that feedback initially, and then, things get busy, a few weeks, probably months went by, and we're all, racing around doing our thing. And she said, I'd love to go out for lunch with you, Fitzy, and have a chat about how things have been going. And I was like, and she said, and I've got, I'd love to chat to you about some feedback and stuff. I was like, awesome, great, because I love feedback. So we went out for lunch, and she let me, and it was a Friday, so we had a little beer. And I think she let me get maybe 2 or 3 sips into my beer, and she's like, so remember that feedback I gave you about sort of your dominance sometimes? And I was like, oh, yeah, I do remember that. And yeah, I know, like I'm sort of, she goes, no, what have you done about it? You haven't done anything about it, have you? And I was like, no, I haven't. And she's, like practical things in terms of, it's one thing to have the self-awareness. It's another thing to go, right, I'm going to walk away and I'm going to go, right, what can I do to actually address that? And of course I was like, like when you get feedback, that's sort of, 30 seconds to 2 minutes of, oh my, I'm a wounded animal.
It's like my pride is a big bruised here.
But you know what? Thank you, Ricky.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's invaluable, that kind of
People
stuff.
don't give you feedback unless they give a shit about you.
Yeah.
Like, if they didn't care, they wouldn't bother. And that's the way that I see it. But back to your question, I'm the master of segues. Back to your question about styles, it really is about that person that you're speaking to, and about what they need and what they want. And I see it as a responsibility of mine to adapt my style to them.
Yep.
So if I've got someone who loves a chat and we talk about fun stuff for 10 minutes or whatever, or we like to have our one-on-ones walking, or they only like to talk to me every 2 months, or whatever that particular scenario is, I am the one that flexes and responds to that, because I'm the one that's got some gems up my sleeve that I've learnt through my experience, but I've also learnt through various, searching and education of my own. It's very important to adapt to the person. And I also share that with them. Your responsibility is to learn to adapt to the people that report to you. It's not their job to adapt to their leader. And I feel very strongly about that, because being in the workforce for, 5 seconds, no, being in the workforce for ages, I remember when I started, in my first professional job outside of uni, and it was nothing like that. You didn't get development conversations. me as a 23-year-old had to adapt to my leader, and it's like, no, sorry, that's not acceptable. It's not
Great
acceptable.
that it's changed, and it's changed. I guess it's still changing, right?
Yeah.
Where are there examples that you've seen, like you kind of touched on Xero and BNZ Digital? Are there other examples where you've seen, hey, something that they're doing here is really cool. We should be replicating that, or at least taking some of those gems.
Yeah.
Who was it, and what was it that they were doing?
Well, I think the biggest learning that I had was actually when I entered BNZ Digital, which was like 6 odd years ago now. How old am I? Anyway, so entered...
15 at the time?
Oh, I was 15, exactly, Eddie.
Nice.
Thank you, yes. The most wonderful thing that I saw in that environment was that there was a focus on leadership and people development.
Cool.
It wasn't just like this lofty, mysterious HR department that existed somewhere that no one could see. There were people that were, so I worked in digital, so looking after a lot of software engineers, testers, that kind, all of the people that are involved in the delivery of software. And what they introduced, which was the role that I applied for, which really pivoted me in my thinking, was we want people leaders that they don't need to know how to code, they don't need, you obviously learn some of the peripheral things to be able to understand their challenges as an employee, but your sole role is to develop, coach, and lead those individuals from a people-centric perspective. And that, for me, if I'm going to sound a bit up myself, made me think, I've actually thought that people deserved that attention for a while, but I couldn't sort of articulate it. And I'd been in different environments where I always cared about people, but I didn't have any agency to kind of do that professionally. Arriving at BNZ, where it's like, no, you're a people lead.
Cool.
That's what you do. And people go, is that all you do? You're like, all I do? I'm busy a lot, thank you very much. But that was a really important step for me in terms of going, wow, people deserve someone that's an expert in this.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Or is absolutely trying or learning to become an expert in that. Because, you would have experienced, I know I have as well, where back in the day, and even to this day as well in certain organisations that haven't quite caught up in my mind, is, you do this role and then you get promoted to that role and then you get to that role and then, now you're going to be a manager of people.
Yes.
And it's like, what, do you know what to do?
Yeah,
no.
That's right. You see that a lot.
Yeah, and it's like, you don't just suddenly become a good people manager just because you've been in an organisation or been in types of roles for a few years, and then all of a sudden you get the management job title. You've got responsibilities, and I don't think people, appointing people to those roles necessarily think about that enough.
No, that's right.
And so that really solidified my thinking of like, no, being a people leader is a profession in itself, and it should be respected as such, in my opinion, because
absolutely.
I saw the most incredible development going on at BNZ, and I played a role in that, and I'm proud of that.
Cool.
But seeing that focus on people, because they've got technical leads, they've got all the people to help them with the tech stuff.
Yep. But
the people lead was at the centre of what we used to call the triad. So you'd have the triad, because we were all excited thinking we're in some kind of cool, group. You grab onto whatever you can to be cool sometimes, don't you?
It's a three thing as well, like a triangle or anything.
Triad sounds so much cooler. Yeah. So we used to have triads at BNZ, which I implemented at Xero as well, which was like, you've 3 points, strangely. So you've got your people lead, who's thinking about the person's health, career, well-being, their development. You've got the technical leader who's thinking about, we have to ship this stuff and we've got obligations to our customers and to the business. And then you've got what they call the product side, which is like, what does it ultimately look like? So we would have this triad of responsibility because all of us are butting up against individuals all the time around helping them to deliver. And it was really important, and we would meet once at least, sometimes twice a week, to be like, what's going on from our perspective.
So this is front of mind stuff.
Of mind. And I would say, right, well, I'm going to talk about the people risks or concerns that I have, or, that person's at risk, they're burning out, or actually give this person an amazing opportunity. Because in the one-on-ones that I've had and the conversations that I've had, did you know that they used to do X, Y, Z in a previous role? Or do you know that actually in their personal lives, they're really passionate about that? it's a smart business decision for us to use that. And it gives them an amazing opportunity as an individual. So, and I can remember when I first started having those conversations, and, you know, and I don't want to make a wild generalization about technical people, but sometimes it'd be like, what? You know, and I'm like, no. So it did take confidence for me to go, no, this is important. You know, this person's well-being is important. The skills that they want to develop, we have an obligation to them, and it's a smart business decision for us to utilise those. So just getting people used to, Rachael or Fitzy is always going to come to these meetings going about the people. And that was hugely empowering for me as well. It taught me to back myself a little bit more. Scary sometimes. And to be honest, my personality is to go in respectful, of course, because that's important to me, but also like I'm going to say it. You know, and I don't know if I've learnt that or it's kind of been part of my well, actually, I do know it's been a part of my personality because I've always been someone right from being a child, who it's about fairness is very important to me. Fairness and respecting people and not judging people has been something that my parents instilled in me, and something that I have seen. Well, I get very upset if I see unfair situations going on, whether it's, it could be anything, sexism, racism, but also just judging someone and being unfair to someone. That tugs at my heartstrings. And my reaction to that is grumpiness and a real desire to know, I know that I've got the skills to speak up for that person, and I will.
Nice.
And of course, some people go, oh, God, here she goes again. But I'm like, oh, yeah, that's fine. But and I'm not going to say that confidence came overnight, Eddie, because I know that people listening to this will be like, oh, it's all well and good for you to say. You can speak up.
Right?
Yeah, it's not easy.
Born like that and turn it on like that.
No, not at all. And it is around practicing. I have a problem with, I can understand this phrase or this analogy of faking it till you make it.
I understand the phrase too. I don't agree with it, but
I don't know if I agree with it either, to be honest, because it's like, no, you want to go in as best you can, believing and knowing that you absolutely have the right to be there, and that your opinions and your voices should be heard. And so, I have a problem with that as well, but I also appreciate that it doesn't happen overnight. It was just lots and lots of working on it for me, and at the start I wasn't very good at it, and sometimes I will still walk away from conversations and go, oh, you missed a trick there. Like you should have said something, because that was your prime opportunity. So I'm not going to sit here and go, I do it really well. I don't. I'm a lot more these days. I get it right. But we're all works in progress. I think in terms of, and going back to a comment that I made before we hit record, a really important part of that for me is my as in Rachael Fitzjohn's board of directors.
Yes.
I love the
Elaborate this phrase because it's such a cool phrase. It's been trademarked, by the way. I've already allocated it to Rachael. Anybody else claims it, it's too late. 10.
No, I completely ripped it off someone else as well. Don't we all? Like, how many totally original ideas do we have?
I know. I try to explain this to people. Anyway, sorry, your board of directors.
Board of directors. So my analogy to that is around that is every successful business will have an effective board of directors, or will at least have a board of directors. And me, as in I am the chief executive of Rachael Fitzjohn. So I am the operational boss, that is running my life, and running my career as well, but it's also, wrapped up in one. And so, yes, it's important to have, your mum or your partner going, yeah, girl, whatever you do is great. Like, you need those people. Of course you do. And I've got people like that are on my personal board that just think I'm amazing and what I'm doing is cool. So and I need that just as much as I need the other members of the board, which I mentioned Ricky before. I need voices like that. I've got another very, she's a close friend. So she errs on the side of you're amazing, but she's also a professional in her own right, in terms of things that she's done, and has got a very strong views, especially in women in leadership. So she gives me a different perspective. I've got a couple of current colleagues on there and previous colleagues on there, and I don't choose the people that are going to agree with me all the time.
Yes.
Because I'm not going to grow from that. And so, and again, I'm not saying that I just go, yeah, tell me anything you like. I'm like Teflon, it just bounces off me. Of course it doesn't bounce off me. Sometimes I do go, oh my God, I totally screwed that up, or I'm feeling very hurt, or, whatever the reaction is. That's totally valid too. But I'll never stop asking for it. I'll never stop asking for it from like feedback or involvement from people that are not like me and who have a different view. Because aren't I more powerful if I understand what other people's views are? Like,
100%.
isn't that more powerful?
Yeah.
So that's been a really big part in me being able to build my confidence in terms of speaking up for the things that are important, and having the confidence, especially, there's more women at the table now than when I started. But yeah, especially that strong female voice at the table as well. It's really important to me.
And so if you think about a person who is struggling with confidence, particularly female, they're struggling with confidence and they're kind of building this board of directors. What do you think are some of the characteristics that they should be looking for initially? Yeah,
sure. So I would be looking for definitely a couple of people in your personal network. So as I said, your mum, your partner, your sister, or your good mates or whatever, because you need those rah-rah kind of cheerleaders.
In a cheerleader capacity?
Cheerleader capacity.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, you've had a tough day at work. Well, you're amazing. Don't worry about it. Pick yourself up. You're great. You're going to be fine. You need those people. Yeah. But you also, I would always be thinking about sort of a recently previous role. So there's a little bit of a distance between you now in terms of where you've gone in terms of your careers. Again, that's another reason why I like to maintain good relationships with people even if I've left, because you don't know when you might need to go, you know what, please join my personal board. So people that know you in a professional capacity, and as I said, may be different to you. Yep. Or you can have also people that have done a similar role to you but take a different approach to you. Then there's definitely a couple of people that will be at your current role, so they understand the circumstances that you're currently operating in. They know, I don't know, the values of the business or the challenges that the business is facing at the moment, or, they've got some of that day-to-day understanding. But you will start to... once you have that concept of the idea of a personal board in your mind, and you're open to meeting people and retaining those relationships and being excited about the relationships that you can build, you'll always have that lens, Yep. So now I meet people and go, oh, I think that person, I really want them to be on my personal board. And it's not like I put a contract in front of them and get them to sign in blood, but I just know who's on my personal board. Yeah, that's right. And so, and I offer it back as a return favour. Like, I will do, if you're gonna give me some good advice, then I'm absolutely going to do it for you as well. Yeah,
because surrounding yourself with people who are just cheerleaders, that just creates that echo chamber, right? Where you just, all you're hearing,
you believe your own hype.
That's right. There's perspectives that all agree with you, which is part of the social media trap. It's like, actually, I want to hear voices that I disagree with, because I want to know what that perspective looks like. Yeah,
and also sort of teaching yourself. I touched on it before around people. There's aside from the psychopaths and sociopaths in the world, there's not many people that will give you feedback just because they want to be an asshole. That's not. They might be a little bit misguided, or they may not communicate it in a sensitive way. But there's not many people who are going to say that to you just because they want to be mean. As I said, a lot of people, especially if you work closely with them, they're telling you because they care about your experience and your progress and how you're doing in your career. So if you can, and as I said, it's not easy, especially if it's constructive. Like when I speak to that story about that previous colleague of mine, she let me have 2 sips of my beer, which was kind, and then gave me that feedback. And I looked at her and I realised I'm hurt. I'm not going to try and justify myself. I'm just going to sit with this for a bit. Yeah. And sometimes actually saying, even if you don't mean it at the time, thank you for that feedback. If you don't mind, I am just going to take that away and sort of absorb it a little bit, and then I will loop back with you. Nice. Because you need to let that rush of, I don't know, embarrassment, anger, frustration, whatever your feeling is from getting feedback that doesn't, that has A come as a surprise, or B hurts because you thought you were doing something great and turns out, could have tweaked it a bit. It's absolutely fine to go away with that information. Always loop back, because if that person's willing to give you that feedback once, they're willing to give you that feedback again. And likely, if you're able to go away and go, that really, like in my case, ouch, but you know what? You're absolutely right. I haven't done anything. And so I walk away and I'm like, oh, and then I'm like, no, just take some time and work out how you're going to do this. Started with the Post-it note on my laptop, telling me to zip the lip until other people have had a chance to talk. But there were other bits and pieces that I tried to implement as well. The thing is as well is that if you then make those changes and become a more well-rounded and, you know, a better professional person and better personally as well, they will then become your advocate. You know, like people that I've had the hardest feedback from where, as I said, I've really had to limp off into a corner. Some of those people are the people that back me the most now.
Wow, that's incredible.
So that's quite an important thing to remember, I think, as well, because if I don't know how much sort of constructive or course corrective kind of feedback that you've had to give, but it's actually really hard to give the feedback too.
To give it in a way that strips the emotion away from it, I think it's incredibly difficult or challenging.
It's really challenging.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, you know, if you do face into those conversations, well, first of all, tick because you're courageous and you care, which is amazing. But as I said, that can then potentially be an amazing relationship that you have going forward with that person.
Yeah,
you know?
I love how you touched on a bit about the fact that they've taken the time, because I'm a big advocate of that, and that idea that a person giving you their feedback or engaging with you, like they've literally committed part of their life. Like that's a bit of their life that they're now sharing with you. And some of the delivery might be off, whatever it might look like, but there's an intent there and they're sharing that bit. They're not going to get that bit back. No. There's no tax rebate at the end of the year where they get that time back.
Like, look, I gave feedback to 10 people. Here's your medal. Like, it's like, no, it doesn't happen.
No, that's right.
But you're absolutely right. They've taken time out. They've been thinking about you.
Yeah.
They've been thinking about how you operate or what went on in a particular situation. I don't, you know, if I've occupied someone's brain in that way, and they care enough to share it with me, I'm grabbing it. I'm grabbing it. And I'm not going to sit here and say you're going to agree with every piece of feedback you get, because you're not. You're not. But just respect the fact that that person has given it to you.
Yeah,
you know, that's at the foundation for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when you're walking people through, so Kogo, it's an international brand now, but you're still like most of it is housed within New Zealand?
Half and half.
Half and half.
Yeah,
oh,
because
awesome.
we've got our biggest clients in the UK, like our biggest sort of like big name banks that we are working with are in the UK. So we've got I'd probably say we're about 50-50.
Cool, thanks. Yeah. And so when you're looking at creating or developing world-class talent, but within Aotearoa New Zealand, what does that look like? What kind of mindset do you need to have as an organisation to make that a reality?
Very good. Oh, God, Eddie, you've got some good questions.
I've been hanging out so long to ask these questions now.
I love it. It's awesome.
That's all good.
So attracting world-class talent. It's not easy. The respect that we have for people in terms of transparency and around, what I talked about before in terms of, for want of a better word, bringing people into the tent early on to information. At Kogo, we apply that to candidates that we have applying for roles as well. So we believe very strongly, and I believe and have believed for a number of years now that is the case. Kogo has just, we openly discuss it and it's agreed upon across the organisation. I personally believe, from my own experience, that we all know what it's like to have been a candidate. It's scary. It's stressful, and changing roles can often be a massive life-changing experience for people. I don't take that lightly at all. And yes, we're say if I'm recruiting, I'm like, oh my God, we've got 50 candidates. Well, you've got 50 candidates. Okay. So you need to treat all of those people with respect. And your job as a recruiter is to manage how you're running that process to make sure you don't get overwhelmed by people. So you want, and I say that in the sense that you don't want to waste people's time. Be very careful about crafting who do you need for this role. Like, what kind of skills do you really need? What kind of sort of culture fit do you need? Like, do you need what's the team like, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So if you've got a team of sort of 5 certain types of operators? Do you need a different type of operator to come in there and sort of, stir it up a little bit? Do you spend the time on crafting your ideas around what it is that you're looking for in a person? Because then when you're advertising, and whether that's, I don't know, you get recruitment help or you're posting on LinkedIn or whatever, what you're really then encouraging is, I can see myself in that, and yes, I will apply. So my opinion is, when people go, oh my God, we are so popular, we had 150 applicants, it's like, it's not because you're popular, it's because you haven't been clear on what you need.
Yeah, it's casting it too wide.
You're casting it too wide. As we talked about, you're wasting people's time. That's not fair.
Yep.
And then they're going to get some kind of two-line, sorry, blah, blah, blah email. And it's like, no. You want to keep that pool tight.
Yep.
So when you're opening up those candidates, if you've got loads of people applying that you're like, that doesn't fit to what we want, that's on you.
Yeah.
You haven't explained it properly.
Yep. Totally
you don't know what you want.
And
casting a net really wide, as you said, is disingenuous, in my opinion. This is not a fishing exercise. Like, this is not fair to do that to people. So we, and I personally, but at Kogo, we really respect people's time before they're even an employee of ours. The other thing that we do when we are at interview stage is that we have established what our process is going to be for the interview stage before we start talking to people.
Gosh, this seems so straightforward, right, folks? But if you're not doing it, it's just not valuing people's time.
I know, and you walk in, and we've probably all been in situations where you go, oh, sorry, what? You're just going to do it on the fly? Like, oh my God, what? So what we do is we agree on who the people are and why, because there'll be some people that can't be in because of this or whatever. So you know who your people are that are involved. Those people, as best as you can, are the people that interview everyone. So you have got every candidate having the same experience when they talk to us.
Yep.
And also, so you can go away and have that group together to go, right, we've all met the same people. What do we think? And being very upfront and transparent with candidates about what to expect through the process. Regular communication. This is what's going to happen in the first interview. Here is some information that we've previously created for you. This is what if you're successful, this is what to expect from the second interview, with an information sheet on what we will be asking you. So we actually go as far as sharing what our interview questions will be. And some people might think, oh, well, no, because, you don't want them to, cheat. And you're like, sorry, cheat? What do you mean? If they go away and research some answers and have a really good think about their answers, isn't that a better result? And this is not about trying to trip people up,
Yes.
Where this is already a challenging situation.
Yeah.
I'm a relatively confident person. I don't run into interviews going, I can't wait to be put on the spot. It's not easy. And so respecting people by going, this is what to expect. This is what we will ask you. Why not?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you will hire one or two or whatever it is, people that you're looking for. Those people have still had an interaction with you as a business. And it's the same as people have a bad experience at a restaurant or they have a bad experience, whatever. They go and tell two friends and then they tell two friends and then they tell two friends. And then all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, that organisation, I've heard through the grapevine that this is what they do. And we've all heard that, haven't
Absolutely.
we? So that, I guess, people experience or employee experience or whatever you want to call it starts well before they're an employee. Well before. Yeah.
Nice. God, I could listen to this. I kid you not. It's like, oh my gosh. Totally agree. Can I just laser in on, say, leadership? So with leaders, what are some, in particular that tier 2, tier 3, that kind of level, what are some of the challenges that you see there? And what are some practical solutions to some of those?
I would say that it falls into a couple of categories for me when I'm thinking about leaders, as you say, across those different tiers. The first one is, I'm too busy for this. And they won't prioritise it, and I sort of kind of nudged on that and pushed on that in the previous answer when we were talking about, people going into roles and all of a sudden they've accidentally got 5 people that they're responsible for. A lot of managers, a lot of leaders are doing sort of a job, and then the people aspect is part of that job. So the biggest challenges I have is leaders not prioritising people. or sort of assuming that their best effort, which is not really, I guess, what I would describe as overall a best effort, is enough.
Yeah.
And so it's about having conversations and being quite, I guess, conscious of providing frameworks for them to rely on. So what I've done in previous roles, and what we've certainly done at Kogo as well, is provide a framework and guidance around. So we've got what we call leadership toolkits.
Mm-hmm.
So they're accessible to everybody. So yeah, we know you're busy. Yep. We don't want that to be a reason why you don't have these conversations, or why you don't, use the skills that you've accrued over time to support people. Mm. So we have toolkits to really, I guess, eliminate that from being an excuse as to why they can't prioritise the time. Mm. Sometimes you will have people, when you say, right, well, in terms of you being a leader and your responsibilities to people and your responsibilities to the business, this must be prioritised. Like it really does have to be prioritised, and my expectation is that it will be. Yeah. With all of the support, as I said, with this toolkit around supporting you. I and my team and the PX team at Kogo, we've all got time in our calendars to support leaders when they need it, whether it's an ad hoc conversation or whether we have regular one-on-ones with leaders to support them if they're new in this space.
Yep.
We also provide what we call a lot of support for emerging leaders as well. So people that are maybe not leaders just yet or managers just yet, but they're really keen on understanding more. The really good thing about doing that is that then it means that there's a broader group of people with expectations on what good leadership looks like as well. So you're kind of like casting that net across the business and like, well, if you're not going to do this leader person number A, your person reporting to you is probably going to have questions around why you're not doing that.
That's right.
And then the second point, I think, in terms of challenge with leaders is around people thinking or not wanting to admit that they don't know how to do it.
Oh, yes. Gosh. Thank you.
Yeah. So there will always, and this is why I don't like fake it till you make it.
Yes.
So here we are. We've looked back to that.
We brought it back.
Because faking it till you make it can be dangerous in that situation, and not sort of admitting that you're confused or admitting that, oh my God, I want to do a good job, but I don't know how, so I'm just going to sort of pretend and hope that it's okay. So that's been a big thing for me is recognising, oh, okay, I'm thinking that this person is actually just been presenting this facade and actually needs some additional coaching around, and this is where I lean into one of the most, I guess, important parts of myself as a leader and in my career is it's okay to be vulnerable.
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely.
I am going to trust someone, or I guess align myself with someone or understand someone if they are vulnerable, because it's not weakness, it's actually power.
It is 100%. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that people will see, I've got to have all the answers, no one does. No one does. Chief Executive doesn't. President of the United States, well, let's not talk about previous president, you know what I mean? You know the point that I'm trying to make. No one does. Really do. And if you can say, I'm not sure what to do here, but you, being the person that can support me, can you help me?
Why do you think people struggle with that? With saying, look, I actually don't have the answers here.
I think it's probably I think it's a few things. I think it's probably generational change as well. Like, I think that there used to be, like even back to the analogy of like, no, you don't cry, boys don't cry. No, you don't show your emotion. I use another analogy around, and I'm very passionate about this as well, because I've had mental health struggles myself and always will, in a good space, but I might not be in a good space again. Something that really stuck out to me was when there was a lot of discussion a few years ago around the police in New Zealand and military forces in New Zealand saying they would not accept applications from people who had had some kind of mental health diagnosis or on medication. And I thought, how dare you? How dare you? And also, can I just say, if I was ever in a crisis situation and I needed a police officer to help me, or I was in a war zone and I needed an army soldier to help me, I am going to feel far more secure with someone who is acknowledged the challenges they have in their life.
Absolutely.
Like, wouldn't you feel,
give me that person.
Give me that person,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah.
Like, that is the person that I'm going to trust more.
Yes.
Because there's that self-awareness, there's that, and I know that generationally it's taken people a long time to come to terms with the fact that acknowledging mental health struggles has not come easy to people. And I totally get that. And I'm careful when I go, yeah, I've had mental health challenges. You know, I'm not saying it to sort of, I guess I am proving a point, but it's even taken me a while to acknowledge that I have struggles. But I trust, and I know from myself as a human being, if someone comes to me, even in a friend capacity or whatever, and said, oh, I'm just really struggling with anxiety at the moment, or I just need to let you know that this is how my brain works. And so I would really appreciate it if we could approach it with that in mind. I'll be like, 100%.
Yeah.
You know, and as I said, the analogy about the cops and the soldiers, that really struck a chord for me. And it struck a chord in me because my relationship ended rather abruptly a number of years ago. I was in a funk, to put it mildly. And I had to go and sort out all of my insurances. And one of the questions on the insurance around, because I've got young children, or not so young anymore, they're getting there, was around, I was in a fortunate position that I could afford and prioritise getting life insurance, because I was like, well, if something happens to me, I need to be able to protect the kids, and income protection insurance. And the question there was, have you had a diagnosis around your mental health? Right. And I said, yes. I was like, I'm going to be honest. Yes. Are you on medication at the time? Yes. Premiums went up.
It's almost like a disincentive to be honest, isn't it?
Like, well, I mean, there's that.
I'm pretty sure everybody who filled that form out should be ticking yes at some stage.
Exactly, but you know what? I bet you, and I don't blame them. I do not blame people for saying no, because there's that thing there. But, you know, there's people can feel judged. I felt judged. And I was like, oh, wow, cool. So I've acknowledged I have a problem. It took me longer than what I would hope it would take anyone else to. Like my children, I'm like, I hope that I'm closing that gap generationally in terms of allowing them to seek help earlier than what I did. And that's what you get in return. And so, again, being the master of segues, I'll come back to my...
Oh, good, man. I love this.
I'll come back to my original point, which is that vulnerability is powerful.
Yes.
And that you are building a stronger connection with someone by saying, I don't have all the answers. It's also empowering that person to go, well, I can actually help with that. Or I know someone that can help you with that. And the other thing as well around that, you know, with a nod to that transparency and kind of openness and trusting, you know, if you say, I don't really feel comfortable with that, or I don't know how to do that, people know that you're going to tell the truth.
Yes.
Like, you're not going to go, oh, shit, you know, and pretend and then screw things up even more. Like, isn't it better to say, I don't know?
Yeah.
Or in my case, with the people that report to me at the moment, I didn't get that right. And I'm really sorry for that, because I know that that's caused you to do some extra work or whatever. If you are unsure about what I'm saying or need to give me that feedback or tell me about that, please do. But I will always go, I stuffed that up. I'm really sorry. And so now my team is tight because they know, oh, well, if Rachel stuffs it up, she's going to tell us. And we can fix it together.
Oh, man, owning that is so important. And like the tone that you can set. You know, talking about the vulnerability is, I remind myself, like, I wear my vulnerabilities like armor. The more transparent I am, the stronger I am.
I couldn't agree more.
Like, just keep it out there. Like, there's no need to, like, I'm not stronger by holding on to this. I'm stronger by letting it go.
Exactly. And if we could all appreciate, and this is what I tell myself, is unfortunately you don't learn from the easy stuff. Wouldn't it be nice if sometimes I go, God, I'd like life to be a bit more straightforward. Like, we all have those 2%. Well, like you were describing to me before about the kid drop off, you're like, really, universe? Really? This is what you're throwing at me?
Beating me down here.
And we do have those moments, like I've had, you know, been busy and kids, you know, as loads of us have our different stresses, whatever they look like. And then I was running late, and then I was like, oh, I haven't put the Weet-Bix away, grabbed it, not properly, and it dropped, and it all over the carpet. And you know when you're like, seriously, someone is really having a laugh somewhere.
Yes.
But yeah, I guess the point that I was trying to make is we don't learn from the easy stuff. We just don't. And so the biggest lessons that I've had, and look, I'll go back to my breakup. That was a crossroads and a half, as you can probably imagine for most people in that situation. And I remember thinking to myself, I've got children. I want them to have two parents, even though, me and their dad had some stuff, as most people do that break up. But both of us had a focus on the children.
Cool.
And I was like, the kids this is adults' problems. This is not children problems. Yep. And so our responsibility is to be good co-parents to them. And I was the aggrieved party. I didn't make the choice to separate. But I was like, yes, okay, but that's mine to sort out, and I will work through that, and I will get there in the end, and I have, so I'm very pleased about that. But the kids would always have two engaged parents who weren't bitching about each other, who weren't making their lives harder or being selfish really around what needed to happen for the kids. That's really important to me.
That's huge.
And I'm not trying to diminish the emotional pain that people go through in that situation, because my God, it's next level. But I very much remember sitting there, and I didn't recognise it as someone on my personal board at that point, Eddie, but they were in all reality. And they said, there's two paths here, Rach. Like, it's go down one path and just be so upset and so angry. And people would understand that. They would understand that you feel this way, that you're heartbroken. Or you can go down the other path, which is, yes, this is horrible. This is a really tough situation. I'm going to do my best, but I must reach out to people when I need them. And lo and behold, and I'm not going to say it was easy, but I am better for it.
Yep.
I am better for it. I am more myself than I've ever been in my life. I have learnt, I've built on, I guess, that natural empathy for others, that not wanting to judge people, because, again, people didn't necessarily know what I was going through at the time, and I'm still trying to work and have a life, so I won't judge other people. Like, it's really shaped me into who I am now, which is, I guess, the point that I'm trying to make about and look, I'm not saying that all hardships are like, just get through it. Like, some hardships are really just awful.
Suck. Yeah.
And they suck. And let's admit that. Let's acknowledge it. Oh, God, how are you? Oh, good, thanks. Well, how are you? Look, I've been better. I've got some stuff in place, but just give me a bit of a wide berth for a couple of days, because I'm dealing with this, And I've started to become a little bit more conscious of, hey, how are you? Not just rolling that off the tongue, because people go, oh, good, thanks. And meanwhile, you're both crying on the inside. It's like, let's try and be a little bit more empathetic to each other.
Yeah. The how are you really question, right? It's like, how are you? But how are you really?
Yeah.
And just having that trust of the other person and allowing that other person to feel safe enough to give you that honest answer. 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, I had experienced
just a really shitty couple of days, and it was all parenting related, self-inflicted stuff. And, one of my besties said, oh, how you doing? And I said, honestly, decidedly average.
Yeah.
But I felt cool enough that he when he was asking, he wasn't just like, oh, hey, how's it going? It was like, how are you? Like, how are you really?
And even the way that you sort of pitch that of your voice can be, hey, how's it going? It's like, it's not really much.
I don't even want to know what the answer is. I've already moved on.
Slower kind of, eye contact, like, are you okay?
Yeah.
That's sort of, or even just opening it up like, I'm not actually okay. So I can only imagine how you're feeling, or whatever the situation is.
Yeah.
But that vulnerability piece is important to me, and as I've probably elaborated on, but there's a woman in Texas called Brené Brown who does.
I'm familiar with, yep.
Yeah, and I love the Texan drawl. It's part of the reason why I love her. But all of her messages, of course, are very important as well. But the drawl is nice. But I don't know if you've come across some of the interviews and work that she's done with military teams in the US around vulnerability. And of course, a room full of Marines, and you're like, oh my God, full on, like really strong. There's no vulnerability there, and the reality was one of the soldiers or Marines stood up. Oh, because she must have said something like, what does vulnerability mean to you? Or is like vulnerability power, or what's weakness, or whatever. Yeah, she was getting into that sort of zone of topics. And one of the Marines stood up and said, there's no power without vulnerability. And I just thought, oh, that was a seed in my head. because I couldn't agree more. There's
That's
power in
a
it.
phrase too.
Really good power. You don't have power without vulnerability.
I love that.
You pretend you do, but you
yes.
don't. Yeah.
And I think that's some of that that projection, and we have it's the silent struggle that takes place behind it, right? That a lot of people don't recognize. But so one of the things I enjoy doing is hitchhiking. And
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And
Amazing.
It's the course of those conversations where a person's invited me into their safe space, and together we're creating this accelerated position of trust.
Wow.
And I find that the conversations you have are just like really
Next
deep.
level.
Yeah, absolutely. And just hearing a person and giving a person that opportunity and that space to say,
That they may not have ever had with anyone else.
it's incredible.
Yeah.
And it's helped me realize, one, is that everybody's carrying something. Everybody's carrying a regret, limiting beliefs, imposter syndrome, self-doubt, negative self-talk, whatever the things are, everybody's got some aspect of it.
Yeah.
And the other one is that we don't afford enough opportunities to just say the things, Like not everybody has this personal board that they can say, look,
Exactly.
this is actually how I feel right now. And I don't need a solution. I just need somebody to hear it.
Yeah, and that's a really good point to raise as well, because there'll be some conversations you have with people, and I started doing this a little bit as well, as it's like, oh, Fitzy or Rachel, whatever, I just wanted to catch up with you about this. And I'm like, okay, do you want me to listen, or do you want like guidance or advice? Because as you so rightly point out, sometimes, and I'm the same, sometimes I just need to get it out of me. And that's all I needed.
Yeah.
But then other times it'll be like, no, what do you think?
Yeah, give me something.
What should I do?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So it's important to kind of, and Ricky, again, oh my God, she's going to because I was having a moan about a conversation that I was having with a family member, and I was like, oh, and I just wish that they would, and she goes, have you told them what you need? No. And she's like, well, what are they, mind readers? I'm like, no.
I love that.
So good. And it is true around, asking for what you need. That whole thing about better out than in, so true. And I've actually noticed it even with my kids, because my parents are wonderful people and I'm so lucky. But I grew up in an age and in a generation where, you don't talk about, if you're, feeling sad or you're feeling whatever, you don't talk about it. You just keep it inside. And so I, like probably a lot of people, even to this day, was like, it's just me. Everyone else is just sailing through life.
Yep.
Something is wrong with me. I am worried all the time. And it was just horrible. And it wasn't until I got older that I sort of started to go, oh, actually, other people are feeling this too. So my, response to that was like, right, well, I'm going to start that from day dot with my kids, like in terms of, how was your day? Oh, it was all right. I'm like, do you want to talk about it or no? Or if they do share a worry or an anxiety, not to laugh it off.
Oh, man.
To go, oh my God, you're only whatever age, get over it, you've got nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, but in their world, that is a big
That's the
worry.
thing, right? Absolutely. And their world, that's the big issue.
It's a big deal, and they're not adults. They don't have all the context or the experience or the stuff that you've got. So, and to that, to a point that I made to you earlier around, I want the kids to know that if they talk to me, I'm not going to laugh it off. I'm not going to be like, and I'm going to listen.
Yep.
And I'm going to respect their sort of, their space. But I'm also going to just keep it between us. Like, you hear some people like having a laugh about what their kids said. And I know we all have a laugh about funny things our kids say.
Yeah.
But like, oversharing a problem that your kids had, it's like, oh, no.
It's very real to that kid.
It's very real. And interestingly enough, chatting to one of my children's teachers, because my youngest has had some challenges with anxiety. And I said, oh, well, between me and your dad, come on, sorry, you never got much chance of saving that. But his teacher said something so poignant to me, which was that she said, you know what, he's dealing with this at a younger age. And yes, it feels big and it feels scary, and you and his dad have got big responsibilities here to support him, which of course we are doing. Well, not of course, we are doing. And she said, he is going to be such a well-adjusted man because at a young age, you've established that trust. He can be vulnerable with you. He can tell you weird and wonderful thoughts that are going through his head. and you're not going to brush it off.
Yeah.
You're going to do everything you can to go, first of all, everyone has it. As you said, Eddie, everyone's got something going on. This is your thing at the moment. And it might change. It may say, and we will help you with stuff to manage that through your life. Or it may go and there'll be other issues, But the reality is, she said he's doing it at a young age and he's talking to you because you've probably got friends, I've got friends that never talk to their parents, and then they get to sort of 18 and 19 and they're drinking and they're smoking and they're experimenting. I was 100%. And you're not telling anyone anything, and you're dealing with mental health. Then you've got no toolkit.
Yep.
You've got no handy little box to kind of go, this is the issue, right, this is what I might do to try and help myself through this particular situation. So,
no doubt.
Yeah.
What is, when you hear the word self-care, what does that look like for you?
For me personally?
Yeah, for you personally.
Strangely enough, and this is a really funny joke because I do make a bit of a joke about this when I'm in the office, which is that I never thought, Eddie, in 1,000 years that I would be a runner.
Okay.
I don't run for physical. I mean, I guess it's nice to have, a bit of a physical reward.
Yep.
I do it purely for my mental health.
Cool.
So I've got a bit of a thing where I like to be conscious of my movement because I love being idle and lazy. I could do movie marathons.
You do not strike me as the person like that at all.
I am like that.
Really?
But I'm also very active. I'm a real contrast.
Man, you're like saving your energy, then bang.
I do. That is exactly what I
Wow.
am. So I'm what I call an introverted extrovert or an extroverted introvert or whatever it is. Because I need to recharge. Like, I give a lot, and I love doing that. Like, it's not a trial, but I do get tired, and I need to refuel. And sometimes it's refueling by, lights out at 9:30.
Right. Yes.
But what it is for me, especially when stress is high, one of the things that I do is I have a very, very tightly managed calendar at work. So I'm talking colour coding. I'm talking carving out time for me to just have time to do things, as opposed to like, I'll just bang, 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 bang meeting. I get really scared if I have an open day because I'm like, oh my God, people are going to put things in there. So I am very careful about carving out time that suit me. So I'm really good at like task in the morning when I've just woken up and I've 2 coffees in and I'm all fresh. In the afternoon, I need to be on my own a bit more. And I might need my headphones on or sit in a private room or whatever I'm doing. And that's when I just have my deep thinking, deep work kind of stuff where I just need to not be interrupted and just focus on whatever it is at hand. So I do that. That helps me to, I guess, follow my natural rhythms as well. I always leave my desk at lunch. Always, even if I'm at home.
I like those.
Yep. And even if I just, because my office, it's a spare room with a laptop set up in it, but I'll call it the office. Even if I just go upstairs and I'm like, Rachel, open the sliding door and sit outside, even if it's for 5 minutes, not with the phone, just looking outside. And I had some therapy recently where, because I love podcasts, and I
We're going to deal for you.
Yeah, I go, hey, guess what? Yeah. I love listening. I love learning things. And sometimes it's I want to learn. Other times it's, oh my God, I want to be entertained. Like whatever it is. I'm a big sort of listener. Therapist said to me, that's great, that you enjoy doing that. But you have got a busy life and a busy brain. And there's, like we all do, have our things. He said, can I just challenge you that for a few of the sort of walks that you do every week, because I like to walk as well, nothing in your ears. Listen to your breath. Listen to your feet on the concrete, listen to the birds tweeting, listen to the cars beeping, like whatever the noise is. And I was like, I'm going to be bored. And he's like, yeah, good. It's good to be bored. And I'm like, okay, cool. Tried it. Oh, Eddie, life-changing.
So good, Ian.
Life-changing. And yes, I do still listen to my podcasts and my various other, and a bit of music and stuff, but I will always try and balance it with, do not put you automatically walk out the door, headphones in. Not automatically doing that anymore. And then, as I said, walking, if I've got this thing of like, I try to walk to work if I can. Not back because I live up a hill and that's pushing back too far.
You've done the walk there, like give down a walk. Take the pat on the back,
But no, that sort of physical movement is really important. So the running, I use a little running thing called Couch to 5Ks. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's got a guidance, like you can put your headphones on and get guided. And so this woman goes, what, for 90 minutes or whatever, so she tells you. So I completely...
Bit of motivation there as well.
And motivation, but I also don't have to think about it. So I'm training up to be able to run 10Ks without stopping.
Nice.
And honestly, I do that and it just gives me that balance. And it's the only person I'm doing it for is me. And that's a really important thing for me to notice as well. The other thing that I do is that I've a lot of people got a lot on my plate. When I've got the kids, I'm on my own. They are busy and they've got sports and they've got this and I've got a busy job and friends and I'm doing the job routine, which is what a lot of people are doing. My good friend Natalie said to me, you are such a capable woman, and like a lot of women, you are juggling a lot of things and carrying a lot of load. She said, I'm not a parent, and so I'm not ever really going to understand personally what some of those feelings or challenges are. She said, but I care about you, so can I just ask you to reach out a bit more for help? And that, again, back to that vulnerability piece, to reach out and say, hey, Nat, I'm feeling a bit crap this week. And do you need me to do anything? No, I just needed you to know.
Yep.
Or, oh my God, I've got to go to the football. I've got to go to this. And what do you need? Well, could you come down and bring me a coffee? Yep. And that was a huge step for me to go. Again, in my vulnerability journey, is like, even as a parent, you're not going to know it all. In your personal life, you're not going to always get it right.
Yep.
And if you can reach out to a trusted friend and say, I'm just not feeling that great. Right, do you want me to come around with a bottle of wine? Yes. Or no, what I do need is this. And not just, like a lot of women, just adding it to the more and more and more things that you're juggling. So that was a really important thing for me too.
That's really cool. It's cool that you've got that, and cool that you've identified that as being a thing that is, supportive of you as well.
Yeah.
I think with, the emphasis on self-care, I feel like it's becoming more and more pronounced. Like more and more people. Like 10 years ago, I don't even recall hearing the phrase.
No, neither.
But
just get on with it. Yeah.
Suck it up. The whole suck it up buttercup or pills. I'm like, amusing. Still sometimes funny.
Still somehow funny.
A lot without, devoid of humour, but it's like when you get below that, it's like, how are we looking out for each other?
Yeah.
How are we looking after each other?
And again, in a professional and personal context, like, you can ignore self-care at your peril. Like, you can ignore it in your personal life and then go, oh my God, I'm just struggling all the time and I'm not able to sort of get through this fog. Or because we all have the fog, and we're up and down and up and down. It's like a gas. And the same thing at work. You can say it's like a nice added extra to encourage your people to have self-care, but it's like, really? It's actually a requirement.
It's the centerpiece.
It's the centerpiece.
It really is. And that's, I think, what I see with executives particularly is great at managing high-performance teams, great at making strategic decisions, great at ensuring the success of their organisation, terrible at prioritising self-care, or let's just say okay, not exceptional, like, but average. Like, if you want to, from my perspective, if you want to keep being amazing at all those other things, look after yourself.
Yeah, well, because you burn, or you'll just spend what I call, and I've done this too, is periods of time where you're circling through on that drain of burnout. Like, you're literally just going like this, and then you'll go down the drain.
Circling on the drain of burnout. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
That is,
I love a good saying.
I love a good visual as well.
Exactly, and it's like, you're just running around, and then something, as you say, I dropped the wheat picks, you got held on.
Yeah.
And that's all it takes sometimes.
It is.
And one of the biggest things I learned, I had postnatal depression with my second child. And actually, if I admit it, I probably did with my first child as well. I just hadn't properly realised it. And I did a significant, and again, I was fortunate to be able to pay for it privately because, public, don't even get me started on public. I believe that everyone deserves equal access to things. So I do have a bit of guilt in the fact that I was able to afford to get myself into therapy quite quickly.
Oh man, if you can do it, don't feel bad.
And I did, and I actually did cognitive therapy, and it was really, really good. Like, it was life changing. Again, another one of those ching, light bulb goes off, and you think, been doing that, And one of the things that this cognitive therapist helped me with was she said, you understand yourself well. Like, you know who you are, you know what makes you angry, what makes you happy, you've got a really good level of self-awareness. And I'd gone to her going, I'm having problems. I'm feeling, a whole lot, and I'd never I was new to parenting at that point. So you don't know what's, going to hit you when you become a parent. Throw a grenade into your life.
Honestly, yeah. I don't recall seeing the terms and conditions. I don't remember signing anything.
It
was the playbook. Sorry.
Someone walking down the street, like rubbing their pregnant belly, like, oh yeah.
Congrats on commiseration.
Come and chat to me in a couple of years. Yeah. But no, and she said, you've got this awareness, but now we need to understand how to what are the things that we need to do to enable you to catch yourself a little bit earlier? So, because what I was experiencing was, stressful things would happen, and then I go all the way to the point of being very stressed out, not managing myself, not understanding what I needed, circling that drain, basically. And so what she was really good, and what I respond to, is that toolkit kind of concept, which is, what practical things can I do for myself? So, and now in practice, it did not happen overnight. And I don't want to dress that up. And it's taken years for me to do this. But I've wanted to be mentally healthy for myself and for my children. And so I made that commitment to it. And what it's meant is because of that practice, I can go, oh, you're having this feeling. That's interesting. If that's still floating around at the end of the week, you're under the pump. And we need to do something like, do you take a half day off? Yeah, ask your parents to come and help with the kids. Like, what are those practical things that I can do? And it's just been about getting ahead of that trajectory, for want of a better word, and going, no, we're just going to pull it back, and then, life happens, and you start going down, you're just going to pull it back a little bit. And so that's been huge for me, recognising what I do. And I don't know what you know about cognitive therapy, but one of the most practical things, and anyone can do this, just go online and search cognitive therapy templates, everyone, you don't have to pay, is you think about a particular situation that's occurred that's caused you to feel stressed, upset, depressed, like whatever it is. And you really got to be willing to unpack that. And there's templates and tables that you can use to ask the probing question. Where were you? So you situate yourself. And that, where were you? What was it, Wednesday? Was it 3 o'clock? Was it cold outside? All of that stuff to get you right in that zone. When did you have that feeling? Oh, well, I was, I don't know, putting the rubbish out. Putting rubbish out. And so, and then so you're unpacking it all. So that helps you to understand, I'm having a funny feeling that I now recognise. And so, no, I'm going to pause and I'm going to think, right, what's going on? Stressed at work, kids are being a pain, whatever's going on. And then go, right, well, I need to take a break and I need to reset a little bit. And that was just game changer for me.
That's wickedly powerful. Preemptive too.
And as I said, the preemptive stuff didn't happen straight away. Practice makes, not perfect,
progress.
Practice makes progress, exactly. And you're always going to go up a couple of stairs and down and then up and then down and then up. Incremental changes, so I like to call it. That's been a huge thing for me in terms, and I've dealt with some pretty hairy situations and I've come through them and I'm like, because I've used those tools. Like I've just learned to understand myself, and I'm in a very busy job now. With an 11 and a 9-year-old, like it's full on. There's no way I could have done the job that I'm in now without having that awareness and going, right, you are going to do some exercise, you are going to have a rest, you are going to take a day off, or whatever it looks like.
Sounds like you've built up a really cool toolbox.
I have.
Very cool. And people
can share it with people.
Yeah, no doubt. So what does the future look like for you?
Oh, I don't know, to be honest. I call it my career, and I kind of call it my career because it's like no planning was involved in this. And so, again, I want to be vulnerable about that too. Like, yes, I've got some skills and I've had some luck and some not lucky situations, or I've worked hard. There's been lots of different factors that have gone into my career. I call it a series of happy accidents a lot of the time. To be honest, I don't know what my next step will be. I tend to be in the moment as well. Like when I am somewhere, I am there. Like that is what I do. And I guess if you wanted to be,
You could call it drinking the Kool-Aid. I don't like to call it drinking the Kool-Aid. I like to call it a real dedication to what I'm doing. And I will show that dedication in every role that I'm in. But it's safe to say, after what we've talked about, that I will remain in the people space. I need to have and want to have that contact with people.
Yep.
I feel that I've got some skills and experience that are valuable, and I want to share them. I want to keep learning.
Yep.
Like, I'm always wanting to do that. So who knows? We'll watch the space. I'd love to do my own thing one day. And maybe I will, maybe I won't. I tend to be a really good supporter of the person that's doing the cool thing, if that makes sense. I'm an engine room kind of person. But yeah, as I said, it will involve people. It's just a case of where. So
Awesome. I'll wrap that up there. Thank you so much for joining me.
welcome. Thank you for having me.
Man, that was like insightful, entertaining. I really appreciate your honesty as well.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, it takes a lot, and you've navigated so many difficult situations. You've worked out what works, still working out what works, what doesn't work. But your candidness about it's going to resonate with people.
I hope so. I want people, I guess the biggest thing that I hope people take away from anything they listen to or anyone that they meet is you're not alone. You don't have to be alone. And even if, say, you're in a particularly isolated situation at the time, you can feel not alone by knowing that other people, in fact, as I said to you before, everyone's got something. And the more we can talk about it, the better. Because, what is it? Problem shared, problem halved or whatever. And as you said, getting it off your chest is the first step. So I just hope that people take away from the fact that no one's got it nailed.
Yeah.
No one has got it nailed. And if they say they have, be deeply suspicious.
Yeah, lying with delusional.
Imagine unpicking those layers.
Oh, I don't know if we've got enough time. Awesome. Thanks everyone for joining us on this latest episode of Big Life Mindset. Thank you to my guest, Rachael Fitzjohn. My goal, my vision is to be a global phenom in helping people to love life more. I appreciate Rachael. I appreciate you all for taking the time to join us. Ka kite for now. We'll catch up again soon.